Hi, in this project, we are going to build a sortable list application. Before we start building the application, let us first see the finished project to get feel of what we are going to build here. So here is the application. We have a list of top 10 richest people in the world here. You can create an ordered list of anything you want. You have the option to scramble the list like this. I can pick a name here and put it anywhere I want, and then you can check whether the order of the names are correct or not. So I'm going to press the check order button, and you can see only this name appears in the correct order and the rest are not, as it is shown in red. So if an element here or name is at the correct position, it will be shown in green, and if not, then it will be shown in red like this. So let's pick Jeff Bezos and put it at number one, and then again check the order. You can see that Jeff Bezos is now shown in green. I can refresh the page and I can see that the order is jumbled. Every time you refresh the page, you are going to see a different order. So you can arrange it to form the correct order and keep checking whether the order is correct or not by pressing at this button. So here are the project specifications. I have just demonstrated you all these functions. You can read it if you want here. And now let's just move to what will you learn from this project. Now, first thing that you will is that you will get command over the DOM manipulation. Second, you will get more used to using JavaScript functions. You will also get to know about the array methods. You will get hold of event listener. So with so much things to learn, let's get started. The editor that I am using for this project is Visual Studio Code. You can go to Google and search for Visual Studio Code and press the download button and you can install it in your system. Now, the directory inside which I'm working upon is named Sortable List app. You can create this folder anywhere in your system and open with Visual Studio Code. Inside this folder, I'm going to create three files: the HTML file, CSS file, and the JavaScript file. Press right click here and create an HTML file named index.html. Second file is CSS file named styles.css. Third file is script.js, which is the JavaScript file. Inside the index.html file, press exclamation mark and press enter to get the HTML boilerplate. Now, inside the body tag, I'm going to write hello world to check if everything is working properly or not. So I'm going to click on the index.html, right click on it, and open with live server. If this option of live server is not showing up in your VS Code, then simply go to the extensions, search for live server. The first option up here is which you have to install, and then it will show up in your Visual Studio Code. Now right click on it, open with live server, and here you go. It's now open in the browser, and you can see hello world is being displayed here. So everything is working properly. Now I will delete this hello world and start creating the actual HTML file which we are going to need for this project. So I'm going to need an h1 tag here, which is a heading tag, and inside it I'm writing 10 richest people. And now a paragraph tag. Inside it I'm going to write drag and drop the items into their corresponding spots. And now I'm going to need a UL tag with class name, draggable list, and ID with same name, the draggable list. And the reason that I'm using ID and class separately here, because this ID we are going to use it for JavaScript and the class is going to be used for the CSS file. Now inside this UL tag, I will need a button tag, and it is also going to have a class and ID. Its class name is check button and its ID will be check. So this is the button which we are going to use to check the order of the list. Now inside this button tag, I'm going to write check order and save it. And let's see how it looks inside the browser. And this is the actual project. I've got the h1 tag. I also have put this button here and the paragraph. This is here. Now you can notice one thing that here is a icon. Now to use this icon, I'm gonna go to Google and search font awesome. Go to this website and you can get it started for free. Now I already have my kit ready, and you can create your own kit by signing up, and you can get it for free. I have my kit ready, so I just have to copy paste it. I'm gonna go to how to use and just copy this script tag and place it inside my head below the title tag. Now on this website, you can see that there are lots and lots of icons here. You just have to click on it, whichever icon you want to use in your project, and copy it in your project. So the icon that I'm looking for is the paper plane. So I'm going to type paper plane here, and here is the first one. Click on it. I'm going to paste this here inside my project. So here it is. Now save it and open the browser, and you can see that it appears here. Just like this icon, I've got the icon on the project. So now I will be working on the script.js file, that is the JavaScript file. I'm gonna get this UL tag and the button tag. The UL tag has the ID of draggable list, and the button tag has an ID of check. So I will be using const draggable list and equals document dot get element by id draggable list. So what it will do is that it will fetch the tag with the id name draggable list, and it will store it in the this variable draggable list. Similarly, for the check order button, I'm gonna do the same, document dot get element by id, and it has an id of check. Now I will create an array, and inside it I'm going to store the name of top 10 richest people. So it is an array. Inside it I'm going to have a list of 10 people. So here are the names of top 10 richest people. I have copy pasted it from Google, and you can do it the same way to save your time. So now I'm going to create an array called list items, and basically it will use to represent the items as we store it and as it is scrambled, and it will be initialized with an empty array. Beside this, I'm going to create a variable which will keep track of the index of each items. So it is going to be named drag start index, and we will not initialize it now because it will be changed later on. And now we will be creating a function named createList, and it will be responsible for generating a list, and we are going to create this function now. So function, name of the function, it will not take any arguments. And now I'm going to have to create a copy of this array, so I will be using a spread operator, richest people. So what it will do is that it will create a copy of it, so we do not scramble it afterwards, because we need this order, and then we have to loop through it. So I'm going to be using an array method for each. And this for each method will iterate through all the elements of this array. And inside it, we are going to pass a function. It is going to be an arrow function actually, and it will take two parameters. First one will be person, and second one will be index. So this person represents each items in this array, and this index represents the index of each element, that is 0, 1, 2, and so on. And now inside it, I'm going to create a value const list item, and it will be used to create an li tag. So create element, and it is going to be a list item, the li tag. So now I will be adding an attribute to this list item. So I will use an set attribute function here. And inside it, I'm going to pass data dash index. So when you create a custom attribute in HTML5, you always have to use it like this. So data dash index, and then you can use any word here you want, and it should be followed by data dash. And I'm going to set that to the actual index, the index. So this index will be from 0 through 9. Now I'm gonna add the HTML to this list item. So inner HTML equals backtick operator. So the reason I'm using the backtick operator is I'm going to explain you in a while. So first put a span tag here, and I'm gonna give it a class of number. Let's close it. Here it is, and inside it I'm gonna put a variable here, that is index plus 1. So this is why actually I'm using the backtick operator here, because in double quotes, when you have to use a variable, then you have to put a plus symbol, then followed by a variable name, then again plus symbol, and then the string name. But here when you are using the backtick operator, you just have to place a dollar sign and followed by two curly braces, and you can just place any variable inside you want. Now I'm gonna write div tag with class name draggable, gonna be a here, and I'm gonna set draggable equals true, and here a will be there. And let's close the div tag. And the reason I'm setting this draggable equals to true, and actually it is an actual HTML property, HTML5 property, so it will actually make this div class draggable. Now I'm gonna place a p tag here, that is the paragraph tag. Let's close the p tag, and let's also close this div tag. Div, it's gonna be small d, and to this paragraph, I will be assigning a class name of person name, as it will display the name of the person. And again, I have to use a variable here, so I will be using the dollar operator, say person. So what it will do is that the for each method will iterate through each of the elements in this array, and it will display the index and person name. And the reason I'm putting +1 here, because index of the array starts from 0, so I don't want to display a 0 here. That is why index +1 will make the numbering start from 1. And the person name, all the name of the person that is mentioned here, it will display here. Now inside the finished project, you can see that after each name there is another icon. This is a grid line. So again, I'm going to go to the font awesome page and search for grip lines. So here it is, the horizontal grip line. It's loading. I'm going to copy paste it here, just like that. Now I'm going to take the list items array which we have created here, and I'm going to push the list item onto this. So the push is another array method which pushes any element inside the array. So all this HTML is going to be pushed inside this list elements. And now we are going to add it to the DOM. So I'm going to use this draggable list dot append child, and I'm gonna place a list item here. So what it will do is that it will append this li tag inside this UL tag. So now let's take a look at the actual project that we are building. So here it is. We can see that all the names of the richest people are being displayed here, and the group lines along with the numberings getting displayed here. So before I move ahead, there is a small typo here. It should be double G and there should be only single B here, and the same here. Now let's save it. Like, as you can see, now it becomes draggable. Now one thing you can notice here is that the list that is being displayed here is in right order. We are just displaying this exact array on this page. What we want is that it should display a random order which is incorrect, so that afterwards you can drag and drop any element or name to put it at the correct position to form the correct order. And every time we refresh the page, it shows any random order. Here it is not like that. So for that, I'm going to add here another high order array method, which is map. It will be p here, map. So what map will do is that it will take an array and it will return a new array of anything we want. So we need something to sort by and scramble the array. So we need something to sort by, and particularly we want a random number to sort by so that it can get scrambled. So what I'm gonna do here is that for each A, I'm gonna return an array of objects, and this object is going to have a value which is A, and also a sort value which is going to be math dot random. This is a JavaScript function which generates a random number between 0 and 1. Now to show you what it does in the for each, I'm gonna console.log person to see where it generates. So now let's save it and go to the browser to see the changes. And as you can see here, the person name is converted to object, as we are using this function to generate array of objects. So it has converted all the list items into an array of objects, and it is being displayed here. And by pressing F12 on your keyboard, you can open the console and you can see there are 10 objects that is being displayed here due to this console log. And now I'm going to open it. As you can see, it contains two values, the sort value and the value that is the person name. And we are going to use this sort value to randomly scramble the list. And every time we refresh the page, we can see that there is a different sort value. So this will help us achieve this purpose. So every time I refresh the page, the list gets scrambled. It shows the different order, and this sort value is going to help me achieve just that. Now the method that I'm going to use to sort the order is the JavaScript sort. You can go to Google and search for it. The first website you get, open it, and here it is, the sort method. And you can see here how it works. So here is an array and it contains 5 numbers. Now I call this sort method and I console.log it into the console, and you can see here the order of sort 1, after that 1 lakh, 21, 30 and 4. You may wonder that it is not sorted numerically. Obviously here 1 lakh is the largest number here, it should be at the end, but it is at the second. So what JavaScript does, it is considering each of the number as a string. So in the string, one after one, 1 lakh will appear, and then 2 will appear. It is only considering the first letter for sorting, as it is a string. So after that 2 will appear, then 3 will appear, then 4 will appear. Overcome this, I'm going to use this compare function method, and what it does, you can read it here. It specifies a function that defines the sort order, and you can clearly see that if this function is omitted, so if we do not use any function here to sort it, so it will convert the array elements into the strings and then sort it, as it is being done here. You can see it. So this compare function will define a sort order, and it will take two arguments for comparison, the first even and the second even. And now you can read about the compare function here, how it works. And here is the function itself. And so if you want to sort this number numerically like this, so that 1 will appear first, 2 will appear afterwards, then after that 3, 4 and then 5, just like this, then you have to use this function. and this is exactly what I'm going to use in this project. Now let's come here and add the sort function here. I'm going to write sort, and inside it I'm going to use a function which is going to be an arrow function. A comma b will be the arguments, and it is going to return a dot sort minus b dot sort, and due to this we are going to see a different order every time we uh, refresh the page. So let's save it and go to the browser, and as you can see that I'm refreshing and I get this order, and we will refresh it again and you see we are getting a different order. Just like this we are going to refresh it here and we see a different order here, just like this. So this objective is achieved now. Now the second thing is that we see that object is still being shown here. The name of the person is not being shown. So what we have to do is to map this object back to the string. Simple, we just have to add a map here, map, and for each one we have to return the value, a dot value. So remember we have an object here with a property value, so we are just accessing that value, a dot value. So let's save this and go back to browser to see changes. The name of all the richest people are being shown here and here as well in the console. And you can also see here that each time we refresh the page, we are getting a different order. And you can see every time I refresh the page, I'm getting a different order like this. Now I'm just going to get rid of this console.log. Here we go. Delete it. So far what we have done is that we have created the list of top 10 richest people here. It's an array, and we are mapping it to an object where the object contains two values, the name of the person and the sort, and it will contain a random number between 0 and 1, and we will use this a property of this object to scramble it in a random order to sort this list in different orders every time we refresh the page. And then we are mapping it back to the name of the person, that is this Larry Page and all. And then I'm using a for each function to iterate over all the elements of this array. And then I'm adding just an HTML to it. With an HTML, that is li tag, is going to be placed inside this ul tag, so it is being displayed on the browser. Let us now start working on the CSS part of the page, because this does not look very good right now. We have to make this page look like this. In order to do so, we have to move this list items into the middle of the page and style it. So the first thing that I'm going to do here is grab a font from Google Fonts. You can search it here on Google and open the first website here. And here are lots and lots of fonts. You can choose any font of your choice. I'm going to select Later font. I will select this style, import it, copy it, and paste it into a CSS file here. So let us now put the browser and the editor side by side so you can see live changes due to this CSS file. To everything, I'm going to add a box sizing property, box sizing, and I'm going to set it to border box. Now let's set the color, background color of the body white. Now I will also add display flex to center everything, flex direction, and it will be column to make it appear column wise, and then align items, it will be center. So now save it to see everything is centered or not. As you can see here, everything becomes centered. Now we are also going to justify it to top. So I will use justify content flex start. Now I will add height. It will be 100 viewport height. Margin will be 0, and font family that we have imported, I'm going to use it now, and it's going to be Lato and sans sheriff. Now let's move on to the draggable list, which is this. It has a class of draggable list. I'm going to give it a border of 1 pixel and it will be a solid border. And let's just add the color to a variable here. So root, I'm gonna give it a variable border color and I'm gonna set it to E3, E5, E4, and let's just define another variable for background color and it's going to be C3, C7, CA. This variable here should contain the double dash, as you can see, to make it a variable. And now I'm going to use this variable here. So var double dash and border color. So you can see the border color appears here. So now let's add text color to this list here, and for that as well I'm going to add a variable here so that I won't have to use it again and again. So text color, and I will give it a color of 34445 F, and let's use this variable here color and set it to var text color. Let's save it to see the change. Now you can see the color of the text is changed now. Now I will set the padding to 0, and I'm gonna give it a property of list style type, and it will be none because I don't want this bullet points to appear here. Now we are going to style the contents of this list item. So this has a class of the draggable list and li, and let's set background color to white, and let's set display flex and give a flex value of 1. And now we are going to add a border after every name here, every list item here, except this last one because this shouldn't have any border here, right? And so after every list item we are going to have a border line. So let's set that. I'm going to use this class again here, draggable list, li tag, and I'm going to use a pseudo selector not, and inside it I will put last of type. It is a pseudo selector last of type, and this selects all of the list item except the last one. Now let's set the border. So border bottom, set it to 1 pixel solid, and I'm gonna use this variable for the border color. And now let's save to see changes here. And as you can see here, border appears after every list item here except this last one. So before I move ahead, I have noticed one thing here, that only 9 of the top richest people are shown here. So let's add one more to this list here. I'm gonna set it to Mukesh Ambani, let's say, and save it. And now you can see all the 10 people are appearing here. And now I want my number like 1, 2, 3 to appear like this in a box. And now let's do this. So it's a draggable list again. Dot number will select this number and or the index that is being displayed here. Let's set a background color again, variable background color, and then set the display to flex, then align items center, and set justify content to center as well. And I'm going to increase the font size of this number to 28 pixels. Now let's define the area for it. So I'm going to give it a height of 60 pixels and set a width of 60 pixels, which is a square box. Now let's save it. As you can see here, it is appearing just like this here. Now let's start giving the margins to this name here so that it appears like this. It has a space before this numbering here. So let's work on that. So this name has a class of person's name here, as you can see here. So let's select that draggable list dot person name, and now let's set the margin to margin 0, 20 pixels, 0, 0. Now this div has a class of draggable, and as you can see here, on hovering over any name, the cursor changes. Here the cursor is different and here the cursor is different. So let's start on working on that now. And you can see from here, this has a class named draggable. So let's set draggable JBL. We want the cursor to be a pointer, and I'm gonna display flex and then align items center and then justify content space between. Now let's set the padding to 15 pix, and let's set the flex to 1. So let's save this, and you can see here this is how it looks now. Now one thing you may notice here that this check order button is appearing at the top of the list. We want to display it like this at the bottom with some margins. So let's go to the index.html and put this button out of this UL tag. So let's delete it from here and end the UL tag here. Now you can see that the check order button is at the bottom, and you can also see now that when I hover over any list items or any names, the cursor changes to pointer just like this. Cursor here is like this, and on hovering over each names, the cursor changes just like here. So now what we are going to do here is that when we check this order by pressing the check order button, so what it will do is it will display those items which are in correct position as green, and it will highlight those which are in wrong positions as red. So let's set the CSS for that. So to do that, I'm going to copy this, and if the class name is li.write, then what it means that if the person name is in correct order, then it will display it in green. So let's set the color to 3A E374, and it's a green color. So if the person name is in the correct position, it will display it in green color. And if the person name is not in its correct position, then I'm going to copy this here. And if this is wrong, then the color is going to be hash FF3838. It's going to be in red. So to test this, whether the items appear in green or not, or red or not, so let's go here to the JavaScript file, and let's add a list item class list dot add, and right. So if the li tag has a class of right, and this class list is a JavaScript function which adds a class name to an HTML element. Let's save it, and you can see here all the names are appearing in green color. And if I set it to wrong like this and save it, and you can see that the list items are appearing in red color. So I'm going to remove this class for now, save it, and now go to styles.css. Now what I want to do here is that whenever I pick an element here, I want the background element to be a little bit darker than this. As an example, you can see here that whenever I pick this names and and take it over other elements, as you can see, the background element becomes darker. So let's set that. So let's add a CSS for that. So draggable list li.over. If a list item is over another list item, then and again draggable, and let's set to background color to EA. And let's save it. Now to show you that, let's add here the class of over to it, to the list item dot class list dot add dot over, and now let's save it, and you can see here the color of the background changes. So what we want is, we want that one list item, when it goes over another list item, it turns it a little bit darker. So first let's remove this from here. This was just to demonstrate you. I'm going to set the styles for this button here so that it appears like this. So for that, let's add dot check btn, add a background color to it. We already have a background color defined, so let's set that to background color. Border will be none. Color will be set to another variable, that is the text color, which we have defined above. The font size will be 16 pix, and the padding, let's set to 10 pix and 20 pix. Cursor is going to be pointer. So let's save this, and you can see it appears like this, exactly like this. And also I want to give this button an effect, so that when we click it like this, it it's showing here a little bit of effect. So we're going to add that now. So let's check btn active, if it is active or it is being clicked, and I'm going to use a CSS property transform here. So when we click it, it scales down to 0.9, and now you can see that on clicking it, it scales down and scales up. And now you can see this border right here on the check button. I want to get rid of that, so let's add check button focus, and now set the outline, and now you can see that this border is gone. So this was about the CSS part of this project. we have made this project look exactly like this. As you can zoom in here and you can see it appears exactly like this. So the only thing that is missing here is the drag and drop function, and we will add it in the next video. Now to add the function of drag and drop to our application, we are going to use HTML drag and drop API. You can read more about it on this website called MDN Web Docs. You can scroll down to see all the events that are available for drag and drop, and you can read more about it here. Since these are events, I'm going to add an event listener to our JavaScript file. So at the end, I'm going to call a function add event listener, and after that, I'm going to create it add event listener. Now we are going to fetch two classes here. One of them is draggable, and another one is the list items. So for first, I'm going to create a variable named draggables equals document dot query selector all, because it is going to select all the HTML elements with the class name draggable. And now the second variable I'm going to create, drag list items equals document dot query selector all, and it will select all the elements with the class name draggable, list, and li. And now for each of these elements, I'm going to add an event listener. So for the first one, draggables dot for each. Again, it's a high order JavaScript function. It will take in a function and it will be an arrow function. So draggable, it is going to return an event listener. So draggable dot add event listener, and I'm gonna make it listen to drag start, and on listening to this drag start it will call a function named drag start, small t here. That's it. And for the second class as well, for this drag list items, I'm going to copy it, paste it here, change the name to drag list items. It will take an item as an argument, and here it will be item, and here it will be listening on drag over, and on listening it will call a function named drag over. And let's add a multiple event listener to it. So here it is going to listen on drop, and on listening to it it will call a function named drag drop. And the third event listener, it is going to listen to drag enter, and on listening it will call a function called drag enter. And the last one is drag leave. On listening to it, it will call a function named drag leave. So now let's create all these functions because we have not created it so far. So function drag start small t drag start, and let's console out to see or which event is calling this function. So event here, and drag start, and let's copy it, create a function for everyone. There is 5 functions, I think: drag start, drag over, drag drop, drag enter, drag leave. So for everyone, I'm going to create a function or define it. So it is going to be drag enter, and here it will be drag enter. This will be drag leave. Here it will be drag leave. Here it is going to be drag over, and also here drag over, and here the drag drop function, which is this, and add a just drop to it. So now let's save it and go to the application and open console, and let's start dragging it. And you can see the events have been called here. The functions that we have called, it is calling an event. So you can understand series of events that is happening here. So first I picked up an element here and started dragging it. An event listener called drag start happened here, and then I was dragging over the other elements. So a drag over event called here, and then finally I left it. So a drag leave happened here. So you can see it again in action. I'm starting to drag now. I'm dragging over and then I leave. So finally drag leave. And now we are going to add a function in which we pick an element and drag it over the other elements. Then the background of that element becomes darker. Just like here, I'm picking a name here and dragging it over other elements, and we can see that the background is getting darker. So let's add that, and we are going to do that through this function, the function drag enter. So first I'm gonna comment it out so that later you can try it on your own. I'm going to add that function of making the background darker to this function. So on drag enter, I will add this dot class list dot add, because on entering over other elements I'm going to add a class called over, and on leaving I'm going to add a class list dot remove over. I will remove it once I leave it. So let's save it and see it in the browser. As you can see here, now background is getting darker every time I put an element over another element. Now to be able to move this element to other position, we are going to use this variable that we have not initialized yet, drag start index. So inside this function, when we start dragging, I'm going to initialize it, the drag start index, with the this dot closest li dot get attribute, and I'm going to add data dash index. So what it will do is that it will fetch the closest li tag on which we are dragging the names to, and this data index will fetch the index over which we are scrolling the name, and it is going to return a number with a positive symbol. So let's save this and see it in action on the browser. Open it, open the console, and you can see if I start dragging it over the third element, nothing shows up here because we have not put console.log here. So let's console.log, let's drag start index. Now let's see. Now you can see here that if I drag start this, it has an index of 0. If I drag start this, it has an index of 2, just like the array. If I drag start this, it has an index of 4. You can see here. Now we have this set. Now let's go here, drag drop, and I'm going to create another variable here, drag and index, and I will initialize it with this dot get attribute data index. So we have two variables. One is for the start index, drag start index, and one will fetch the drag end index. And this is going to be a positive number. So now we are going to create a function, swap items, and it will take two parameters, drag start index, from which we have started dragging it, and drag end index, where we intend to drop it. So what it will do is it will swap the position of two elements over which we want to perform the drag and drop operation. And now I'm gonna remove the over class from the list item so that the darker background doesn't stay there. So class list dot remove dot over. Now let's create this function called swap items. So function swap items, it is going to take two parameters. Let's name the first parameter from index and the second one to index, from where we intend to drop it. Now I'm going to console.log here to see what happens. Let's save it, go to the browser, and let's drop it, and we can see the thing is being printed here because this drag over event is in between, so it is getting in the way. What we want to do is that we want to prevent the default action of this drag over function. So I will pass a parameter here e, and I will call e dot prevent default. It is a function. So now let's go to the application and drag and drop, and now you can see 123 appears. So let's get rid of this console.log here. So let's now get the DOM elements. So cons item 1 will be list items, and it is going to be from index dot query selector, and it will select element with the class name draggable, and the second one is the item 2 with the same list items. It will be from the to index query selector. It will also contain class name draggable L, and it is going to be a dot here, one dot draggable. And now console.log to again see the changes. Console.log item 1 comma item 2. Now let's go to the browser and drag it, drop it here. There is an error here, so let's see where it is. Here it should be small t. Let's save it. Let's drag and drop it again, and you can see that the two elements are being fetched here. First one is the Larry page because I took it and dragged it and dropped it over Jeff Bezos. And now what we want to do is the swap item 1 with the item 2. Swap it. So list items and from index, and what it will do is it will append child to item 1 and list items to index, and it will append child to item 2. Let's see it in the browser. Let's pick it and drag and drop it to Elon Musk. It's not working because we have to put item 2 here, TWO, and I have to place item 1 here. Now let's go to browser and pick Elon Musk and drop it over Bill Gates, and you can see it is swapped. So the function of drag and drop is working perfectly. Now the only thing left in this application is to check the order, so that on pressing the button it checks the order whether the order is correct or not, or which names are in correct position. So only thing that is left, we are going to see it in the next video. So now what we want to do is that when we press this check order button, it will check whether the elements are at the correct position or not. So let's add an event listener to it. We have a check button here. So let's add an event listener. Check dot add event listener, and I'm gonna write here click, and when that click happens it will check order. It will call this function. So what it will happen that whenever we press or click the check button, it will call this function check order, and now we are going to define this check order function. So let's create the function here, function check order. So inside this function I will have list item, and I'm gonna iterate over it using the for each method. And list items is here. It was initially uninitialized, but later on we appended HTML in it with index and the name of the person. So let me iterate over it here, and it will take two functions here. The function will have parameter index. First parameter will be list items, and the second will be index, and it will be an arrow function. So now we want to get the person name. So const person name equals list item. Since we are iterating over each list item containing index and the person name, so query selector, and it will select the draggable, whatever inside the draggable. So it does not, whatever inside the draggable, it does not contain the index, it only contains the person name. So we are selecting it and assigning it to this variable person name. So what we want from here is the inner text, and we what we want to do here is trim it. Now I will write a condition here which will check whether the person name is not equal to richest people with a index. So what we're doing here is that we are taking this index and we are matching it with this index of the original array. So we are checking it, and if it doesn't match, so if it is not true, we will add a class to it. So list item dot class list dot add. So we will add a class of right to it, so that it becomes red in color. Sorry, right will make it green, so I will write a wrong here. And else I will add a list item dot class list dot add right. So if it is wrong, if it doesn't matches with the original index of the original array, so I will add a class of wrong to it, which will make it display it in red. And if not, then a right will be added to it to make it green. So before we do this, I also have to remove the wrong here first, because wrong might be added by some previous iteration. So wrong, I will write remove here. That's it. So now let's save this and go to the browser to check whether it is working fine or not. Press on the check order button, and only the 10th number is at the right position. So let's pick Jeff Bezos and put it at the top position, and now it is also correct. And similarly, by looking at this array here, at the second is Elon Musk. Go to the browser, put Elon Musk at the second position, check order, and now it is being displayed in green. So our application is working just like this here. So put Jeff Bezos at the top position, and here it works fine. So our application is now, and obviously you can experiment around with it. You can add background to it to make it more beautiful. If you can add more functionality to this website, that can also be a very great thing. So I hope you have learned something from this project. Thank you. Hi. For this project, we are going to be building an analog clock application using HTML, CSS, and pure JavaScript. You can see here how beautiful this application looks. So before we move ahead, let's have a look at the finished application so that we can get a feel of what we are going to build ahead. So this is how the real application looks. You can see here it is just like a normal clock, the analog clock, the hour hand, minute hand, and the second hand is always on the move. It is constantly moving. It is showing us the correct time, and you can see here the beautiful background. So now let's see the project specifications. Here are the project specifications. I have demonstrated you these things right now, and you can read it about here if you want. And now let us look at what you're going to learn from this project. First, you are going to learn the basic math that is involved here in making of this application. And by basic math, I'm referring to the mathematics that is involved in how a clock works. You will get to know about by how many degree the minute hand or second hand or the hour hand should move at a given time, and then you will learn about the set interval method, then the JavaScript date function, and you will also get to know about the style transform property of HTML. And then obviously you will get better at using the IDs in JavaScript or linking HTML IDs with JavaScript. So with so much things to learn, let's get started. So before we start building the application, it is important to have a knowledge of mathematics which is involved in how a clock works. To understand it, let us take an example. Suppose you want to show 8 o'clock 16 minutes and 17 seconds into your clock. So you have to figure out here by how many degrees should I rotate this hour hand, minute hand, and second hand so that it shows this exact time. So we are going to use unitary method, which is a basic mathematics, to find out how many degrees this hour hand, minute hand, and the second hand should rotate to show any time that we want. So let us now calculate by how many degrees should this hour hand rotate to show any time. So let's work for the only hour hand now. Hour hand. So we know that in 12 hours, the hour hand rotates by 360 degrees. So applying unitary math, we can say that in 1 hour, hour hand rotates by 360 degrees upon 12. This will come out to be 30 degrees. So in 1 hour, this hour hand rotates by 30 degrees. So if we have to calculate it for h hours, h is a variable here, h hours, then by how many degrees should it rotate? So 30 times h degrees. And now we have to take into consideration this minute hand as well in calculating by how many degrees this hour hand rotate. Suppose the time is 1:30 p.m. So the hour hand will be between 1 and 2. So we have to calculate by how many degrees that does it rotate due to this minute hand. We have calculated here that in 1 hour the hour hand rotates by 30 degrees. So we know that in 1 hour there is 60 minutes. So in 60 minutes the hour hand rotates by 30 degrees. So in 1 minute hour hand rotates by 30 upon 60 degrees. It will turn out to be 1.5 degree. So for m minutes, m is a variable here which is unknown. We can put whatever here. So in m minutes, the hour hand will rotate by m by 2 degrees. So this is our equation 1 and this is our equation 2. So add it up. So I'll get total rotation of hour hand. Total rotation will be 30h, 30 times h plus m by 2. This is our formula for calculating the rotation in degrees for the hour hand. And one thing to note here is that we are not taking into consideration this second hand, because the movement due to this second hand in the hour hand will be negligible. So we are not taking it into account. So let us now calculate the degree of rotation for this minute hand. So we know that in 60 minutes, minute hand rotates by 360 degree, as you may have noticed in a real analog clock. So applying the unitary method in 1 minute, The minute hand will rotate by 360 by 60 degrees and it will turn out to be 6 degrees. So for m minutes, m is a variable here again, so it will rotate by 6 times m degrees. So this is my second formula that I'm going to be using for building this analog clock. Now I'm going to calculate the degree of rotation for this second hand. So for second hand, we know that in 60 seconds or 1 minute, the second hand rotates by 360 degree. So in 1 second, it will rotate by 360 by 60 and it will turn out to be 6 degrees. So for s second, it will rotate by 6 times s degrees. So these are the three formula that I'm going to be using to develop this analog clock. So these three formulas are really important formula when it comes to how a clock works. We can use this formula to calculate the exact position of this hour hand, minute hand, and second hand in a clock. And along with these three formulas, I'm going to be using my web development skills to make this page and application more responsive and working. So this is my first formula. This is my second formula here for the minute hand. This is my third formula here. So remember these formulas. So these formulas will be the main part of the JavaScript file. So now let's start building the application. The editor that I'm using for building this project is Visual Studio Code. You can go to Google and search for Visual Studio Code and you can press on the download button and according to the operating system that you are using, you can install this onto your system. So let's get started with the project. So this is the image that I'm going to be using for the clock in our application, and you can go to Google and search analog clock without dial and you will get many clock faces. You can choose anyone which you like. The clock face that I'm using here for this project is this. You can right click on it and save image and copy it into this folder named analog clock or whatever folder you have created in your system for building this application. You can copy it here and I'm using this clock face. And the background that I'm using for this project is this. So you can go to Google and search for any background image that you want. There is no restriction on that. You are free to experiment on your own. So the background that I will be using for this project is this and the clock face will be this. Let us now create the files. First I will create my HTML file named index.html. Let me also create a CSS file named styles.css and the main file, that is the JavaScript file, so script.js. Now coming to the HTML file, you can type exclamation mark and press enter to get the HTML boilerplate if you do not want to type this HTML head body tag again and again. Now I'm going to change the title of the project to analog clock and I'm going to write here hello world and save it. And let's try to run it with the live server. If the option of live server is not showing up here, so you can go to extension and search for live server and the first option you get, click it and you can install it in your system. What it does that it allows you to see live changes on the browser. When you make a change in your HTML file, you can see it live on the browser. So I have typed hello world here. Now I'm going to open it with live server to see how it looks. Yeah, hello world is displayed here, so everything works fine. And here I have opened the finished application here. So and I'm going to build the application side by side so that you can get the idea what we are building. Now I'm going to delete this hello world and I'm going to link my CSS file. So I'm going to be using link tag for that, style sheet and href equals styles.css. Close the link tag And I will also use script tag here, and src, so it will be inside it. So src script.js. So why I'm using this script tag in the head, not in the body tag, is because we have to load the time before we load the page, so that the hour hand, minute hand, and the second hand is at the exact position of the time that we have. Now I'm inside the body tag. I will create a container div here with the class of clock container, and inside this I will have three divs. So let's copy this, create three divs here. So first div will have an ID of hour. This will be used to display the hour hand. Second div will have an ID of minute. Third div will have an ID of second. So here is a parent container, and inside it we are having three divs, and each div represents a hand of a clock. So this div represents the hour hand, this div represents the minute hand, and this one the second hand. So now let's go to the CSS file and give the body a background. So I will use the body tag and background, and I will use the URL function to link the image bg.png. I have a file named bg.png here, which is like this, and it will be in the background of the page. So in the style.css, I have set the background of the body to bg.png. So let's save it and see it in the browser. And this is my original project, and this is the finished project. So as you can see here, the background is exactly like this. Let's add a CSS for clock container, and I'm gonna give it a background color of red, background color of red, just to see the changes in the browser. Height will be 12 pixels. I'm using it just as an example. This is just a random number, I'm picking it here, 23 pixels, and let's save it and see the changes in the browser. It doesn't show up here, so let's see. Here is the error because I'm using class here instead of class. Let's change it to ID, and now go to the browser, and you can see here the height of 12 pixel and width of 23 pixel, and the background color of uh, red is being shown here. And inside it I want to put my clock, so let's increase the size. Go to the CSS, and so here I'm going to set my height to 40 viewport height, and same for the width as well. So what this means is that whatever the viewport of the page is, it will set the height to 40% of that, and it's the same for the width. Now save it and go to the browser, and you can see it is being displayed like this. Wait, so here I will change it to viewport height, viewport width. So let's now see, and you can see here it is 40% of the whole viewport, that is this whole area that you are seeing here in the browser. Now my clock should be inside this container. Now to add a clock to it, I will go to my CSS file and add a background to it, and I will use the URL function, use the comma, use the single quote, and I'm gonna put my clock here as a background color. Go to the browser, and you can see my clock is displayed like this. I'm going to give it a property of no repeat, as my image should not repeat. Now to avoid this from happening, to make this clock face fall completely inside this class container, or the ID clock container, we have to use a CSS property called background size, and I will be setting it to 100%. Now let's save, switch to the browser, and you can see here the clock is perfectly shown here. Now comparing it with the original application, you can see here this clock is in the center of the page, and here we have a clock on the left side of the page. To make it fall into the center, let's add margin auto. Now let's save it, and as you can see now the clock is at the center of the page. Now the next thing that we want to do here is to add the minute hand, hour hand, and the second hand here with the help of JavaScript and CSS. So I will look at that in the next video. So in this video, we are going to be working upon the hour hand, minute hand, and second hand. We are going to add that to this clock here. But before moving on to that one, you can open your console here by pressing F12 and click on this toggle device toolbar button here, and you can adjust the size of the screen to see how the clock adjusts itself according to the screen. You can see here that our application is now completely responsive. It is adjusting itself according to the size of the screen. You can go here and select any device of your choice, like iPad. This is how it will look on the iPad. This is how it will look on the iPhone 10. So according to the device, this application size will adjust. So let's close this console now and start working upon constructing the hour hand, minute hand, and the second hand. So now let's go to our code here and open styles.css, and as you can see here in the index.html, this will represent the hour hand, this will represent the minute hand, and this will represent the second hand. So in styles.css, I'm going to give property for each hand. So use the id selector here, hour comma minute comma hash second. It is going to select this div here, all the three divs. The first property that I'm going to give to each of the hand is position absolute. Along with that, I will add another property, that is background will be black. And then I will add a border radius property, and I will set it to 10 pixels. This is just a random number that I have picked here to see how it looks, and if it is not correct or it does not look good, we will change it afterwards. Now let's save this and switch to browser, and you can see here nothing is shown because we haven't given this hour hand, minute hand, second hand the height and the width. So after giving height and width, it will show up on the clock here. So let's give it. So I'm going to give it separately, the height and width separately for each hand. So let me create id selector for each one individually here. This will be minute, this will be second. So let's give a height and width to this hour hand first. So I will give it a width of 34 pixels and a height. The spelling of width is wrong here. And now I will give a height to it. Height will also be 34 pixels. This is just a random number that I'm giving to see how this hour hand looks inside the browser. So let's save it and move to the browser. And as you can see here, this is how the hour hand looks. Surely here we need to adjust the hour hand because this does not look exactly like the hour hand. This is just a square shape. So let us adjust it now. So I will now give it in the percent, not pixels, because it is relative to the container. So let's say 4% and 34% and how it looks. So this is how it looks. So we need to make it more slimmer. So let's set the width to 1% and the height to 49%, and now see how it looks. So here is how it looks. So we have to give margin from the left and from the top as well to fit that here. So rather than going to the Visual Studio Code and work on it, I'm going to go to my console and select this element tab and come here, and you can see if you select here. So here in the styles section, you can see the CSS property of every element that is present in our application. So here you can pick this, you can select this, you can click on this and select this hour hand button, and you can see the CSS property of this hour hand button is being shown here. I'm going to adjust it so you can see it live on the page. And I'm also going to increase the width. No, 1% is fine here. This is good. And now I'm going to give it a margin from top. Stop 21%, let's say. So it is down. Let's decrease it. This is good. And now I'm going to give it a margin left, and I'm going to set it to 49%. I need to increase it a bit. Okay, so it should be between 49 and 50. So let's set that to 49.5, 49.4. Perfect. Now I need to decrease the height of this hover hand because it is way too long. So let's decrease that and increase the top margin top. I will increase the height some more. Sorry, I will decrease it and increase the height. And as you can see, it is perfect. And now you can copy this CSS here and paste it into your code. So you can see how easy it is to work on the CSS and the console itself, where you can see the changes live on your application. Now, before we move ahead, let's check that it is responsive or not, whether the application is adjusting to the size of the screen or not. So click on this toggle device toolbar again, and you can see that this is not adjusting according to the size of the screen, as this hour and minute hand is now at the wrong position. This is because we have not set a property here. I will give it now position relative to fix it. And now let's save it and go to the browser. And as you can see here, it is fixed now. The our hand is not moving anywhere according to the size of the screen. It is fixed now. So only thing we have to do now is to adjust the margin top so that this our hand becomes pivoted on the center. So again, come here and increase the margin top. As you can see here, it is coming down. That's good. Now I need to increase the height. I've increased the height and now decrease the margin top. Perfect. Now let us increase the width of this hour hand. It is let's set it to 1.8. Good now, and set it a height to 25% and top to 25%. I need to decrease the margin left here. So let's set it to 48.8%, let's say. So now it is at the center and it is perfect. And let's also give an opacity property here and set it to 0.8. Perfect. Now you can see that this our hand is now perfect. So let's copy the CSS here and paste it into our code. Paste it here. Now copy it. Now let's do the same for the minute hand as well. Set the width to, let's say, 2% and height to 30% and the top to 20%, the left to 50%. And let's save it and see it in browser. You can see here it is looking almost perfect, but we need to decrease the size of this minute hand a bit. So let's decrease it to 1.6. Let's say, sorry, this is our hand, so I should not mess with it. I need to select the minute hand here. So by clicking on this and selecting this button, and you can see the ID selector of minute appears here. Now let's set this to 1.6, let's say, and you can see it is a bit slimmer now. And let's set that decrease by 1%. Now set the margin left to 48%, increase it a bit. Perfect. Now also give it the opacity property of 0.8, as same as the hour hand. Now the minute hand looks perfect now. Let's copy this properties and paste it here in your code. Now let's do the same for the second hand. I'm just going to copy the same here and then save it. Go to the browser and change the properties. So let's select this second here, and as you can see, the ID selector with the second appears here. I will make some changes here. Set this to 1% Set the height to 40% because the second hand is the largest here, and set the top to 9%. Decrease it actually, you can see here, and now set the margin left to 49.5% and set the opacity to 0.8. It is perfect. So you can see here our clock is looking perfectly fine here. Our hand, minute hand, and the second hand looks perfectly fine, and those all hands are at the perfect positions. So let's copy these CSS properties and paste it into our project. Let's save this, go to the browser to see changes, and you can see here our clock looks perfectly fine, and press F12 to check whether our application is responsive or not. And as you can see here, by increasing and decreasing the size of the screen, the hour hand and minute hand and the second hand is perfectly intact. Now it's time to add the JavaScript part to the application, and we are going to see it in the next video. So let us now start working on the JavaScript part of the application. Using JavaScript, I'm going to make this hour hand, minute hand, and second hand set in motion. So let's go to Visual Studio Code, and the JavaScript function that I'm going to use here is the set interval. That is actually a method, and it takes inside a function. So let's make it an arrow function, and the second parameter it will take is the time or the duration. So let us set it to 1000 at, and this 1000 it is in milliseconds. So what it does is that after every 1000 millisecond or 1 second, it will call this function. So let's console.log and print hello world to see what this set interval method does. It is going to be arrow here since it is an arrow function. Let's save it and go to browser and open console by pressing F12. Go to console, and as you can see here, hello world is being printed after every 1 second. So this set interval method is calling this function which contains console.log hello world after every 1 second. Now let's delete this. Now I'm going to tell you a JavaScript method to calculate date or time. So I'm going to use this function new date dot get hours to get the current hour. You can get this minutes of the current time by typing this function in the console new date dot get minutes, and it will show you the current minute of the current time. And similarly you can get seconds here of the current time by typing new date function dot get seconds. So we are going to use this method in our JavaScript file to get the current time. So let's use a variable called d here, and I'm going to set it to new date, and our time will be d dot get hours. It is a function that I have just demonstrated you. Now this is minute time, and it will be d dot get minutes function. And then finally the second time, and it is d dot get seconds function. And now I'm going to use those three formulas that I had demonstrated you earlier to calculate the degree of rotation for hour hand, minute hand, and the second hand. So let's have a quick look at it. Here are the three formula. This is the first formula, 30 times h plus m. This is to calculate the degree of rotation for the hour hand. This is the second formula to calculate the degree of rotation for minute hand, and this is the third formula to calculate the degree of rotation for the second hand based on the current time that we have to show on the clock. So I'm going to use three variables here for the three formulas. So this is h rotation for the hour rotation, this is m rotation for the minute hand rotation, and this is s rotation variable for second hand variation, second hand degree of rotation. So the first formula was 30 times the h time plus minute time by 2. You can have a look at the formula. Here this 30 times h time will be performed first, and then the m time by 2 will be performed then, and finally this addition operation will take place, and it is according to the rules of compiler. So this is how it is calculated. The multiply and division have the higher priority than the plus symbol. Now to calculate the degree of rotation for minutes, we had the formula of of 6 times m time. And for the second hand rotation, the degree of rotation will be 6 times s time. So this is in degrees. So this is how much it should rotate based on the current hour hand time, or the minute hand time, and the second hand time. Now I have to change the CSS of hour hand, minute hand, and second hand to make it move, or to set it in motion. So let's use the style transform property of HTML now. So hour dot style dot transform s here, and I will use a backtick operator here. And the reason that I'm using backtick operator here is because it allows us to put a variable inside it, inside a dollar symbol. So I'm going to show you just now. So first I will write rotate here, and then put a bracket and dollar, and I'm going to write h rotation here, and finally degrees. So it should rotate the hour hand by this much degrees. And this is the reason why I'm using the backtick operator here, because when we use double quotes, we had to write this h rotation, then plus symbol, and then again double quotes, and before that as well we had to add plus symbol. But here, when we use backtick operator, we just have to put a dollar symbol and use the curly braces to put any JavaScript variable inside it we want. And I'm going to copy it. Let's copy it 2 times, and second, and this will be for the minute hand, this will be for the second hand, and this should rotate by m rotation degrees and h rotation, sorry, s rotation degrees. And now let's save it. Go to the browser, and you can see here that this is not how a real clock works, right? So the problem here is that this hour hand, minute hand, and the second hand is rotating it at its center, and its center is here. So it's rotating according to the center, but we don't want that. We want to rotate it through this point, so that one end of the minute hand is pivoted here, and the second end is constantly moving. Now to fix that problem of changing the point of rotation to the bottom, we are going to use this property, transform origin. You can search for it on Google and open this website called MDN Web Docs, which contains a documentation for everything related to web. So this is the property that I am going to use, transform origin equals bottom. And what it will do is that it will set the point of rotation of this hour hand, minute hand, and the second hand to the bottom, so that it can rotate from here. So let's go to the CSS, and here just paste it, the transform origin bottom, and let's save it and go to the clock. Now you can see that the clock is working exactly like an analog clock, and it is showing us the current time. And the style transform property here that I have used here, you can go to Google and you can search for HTML styles transform property, and go to this website called W3 Schools. It is an amazing website, and you can check what style transform property does. And this is here that I have used this rotate function here to rotate the clock, uh, rot- to rotate the hour hand, minute hand, and the second hand for this clock. And this is the definition of style transform. This allows you to rotate, scale, move, and skew the HTML element. And there are various functions here. You can try it out on your own and work on it to get better at it. And now let's check whether the website is responsive or not. So as you can see again, the website is completely responsive. The minute hand, hour hand, and the second hand is completely intact at this position and rotating from this point. So I have used the pure JavaScript and CSS here to move this second hand, hour hand, and minute hand to show us the exact time. So let us now have a look at what we have done in the project so far and what we have learned from it. First, we created our HTML page here, and inside it we used a div called clock container, and this div with the id clock container is used to display the clock face, and inside it we have a hour hand, minute hand, and a second hand, and this is represented by 3 divs. And now coming to the CSS part, we have used a background called bg.png for our project, and you can see it here. This is the background that we have used. And then I wrote the CSS for the ID clock container. Then I added the CSS for hour hand, minute hand, and the second hand individually. And this is the clock face that I have used. So let's open it. So this is the clock face. You can download it from Google. And coming to the JavaScript file, here we have used the setInterval method, which calls this arrow function after every 1000 milliseconds. Then we have used this JavaScript method called new date, and this allows us to get the current time and date. If we append get our function to this new date function, then we get the current hour, the current minute, and then current second by appending get minutes or get seconds or get hours to it. And then we calculated the formula for degree of rotation for the hour hand, minute hand, and the second hand. So these were the formula that we came up with, and then we used the style.transform property to change the CSS for the hour hand, minute hand, and the second hand. And this is the rotate function that I am using for changing the rotation or for rotating the hands of the clock. So the main thing involved here is the basic mathematics here. You as a programmer should be good in mathematics. So I hope that you have learned something from this project. Thank you.